What is going on? I'm Josh Reisick, and I'm here with Brian Koleski, and welcome to episode 14 of Back of the End Zone. And right now, we are both super pumped for this episode. And I think one thing that we're even more pumped about is last week we went off the charts and had the most successful podcast that we have had so far talking about
over 400 views, man. I don't know what about it. We didn't do anything special. We covered. I guess Clemson's a hot topic. I don't know, but we had our most successful episode yet, and man,
I think we had some good breakdowns on them too. And the exciting part about this week is we talked about Clemson last week, and we're playing who they could potentially face in the
Florida
ACC
State, the Seminoles, man. I think Florida. When we did our conference prediction episode, episode 2 or 3, I picked Florida State to win the ACC, and I'm sticking by that. I do think they win the ACC, and we'll get into a little bit more about that later. We're going to talk about the baby Gronk stuff. I mean, he's been trending for a few days, and in the college football community, he's been trending just a little bit. I mean, we're not going to talk about it that much because it's not that big of a deal, but it is, something worth touching on. And then
100% it is. And another thing we're talking about this episode is from here on out, each and every single week for our little NFL segment, we're going to pick an NFL division, AFC, like whether it's the AFC South or AFC West, NFC North, whatever. But this week we're going to talk about the NFC South, give our predictions on what we think is going to go down in that conference, because it's one of the most debatable conferences in the whole entire NFL next year. So, yeah. And also then after that, or before that, we're going to talk a little bit about the Big Ten and how they were the last Power 5 conference to finally go on with making the adjustments of completely getting rid of divisions in college football. This happened last week, a little earlier on last week, but we're still going to talk about it because there's some interesting stuff with that and how they were very late to the trend of doing that. So,
yeah. And, USC and UCLA, I think are going to have their first year, both teams, their first year will be a little bit rough in the Big Ten, and we'll get to that later. But man, I'm ready to get into it. This episode is going to be crazy.
Oh yeah.
All right, everybody, welcome to segment 1. Brought to you by Now Fitness. Now Fitness is a gym and fitness center in Grove Hill, Alabama, owned by Corey Creighton and Brianna Krim. They do personal training, group sessions with CrossFit and other workouts, and they help local athletes train and get in their best shape. Call 251-269-3065 for more. They do great work. A lot of the local athletes here where I'm from do a lot of training with them, and it definitely helps them out, and you see the results on the field. Go check them out. So anyway, time to get into the nitty gritty of the Florida State Seminoles, man. They really, they didn't win the ACC last year. They didn't win I don't think they played in the ACC title game last year. But man, they had a great year last year.
Turned heads. Mike Norvell literally took that team and completely turned heads from the start of their season last year, playing LSU week 1. And just completely turned heads the whole entire season. Yeah. So I don't think anybody expected that team to achieve what they achieved last year, even though they didn't have the craziest year. They went 10-4 or something like that, I believe. I think that's completely off. But whatever they did last year, like they just completely heads. They did. And
last year you saw them beat LSU in Louisiana. They played in the Superdome. They beat them by 1 point. And, the beginning of last year, a lot of people were worried about Florida State because they were losing a little bit recruiting wise. They lost Travis Hunter a couple of years ago to Deion and Jackson State. A guy played at Florida State, and a lot of Florida State fans and college football fans in general were wondering when is Mike Norvell's time at Florida State coming to an end, because I don't know, Florida State was just had a great turnaround. Their schedule, it's not easy, but I do think they have a chance to really make noise and compete for an ACC title. I
Easily.
think
And exactly what you were just talking about with Mike Norvell. His first year at Florida State was the COVID year, but he went 3-6. That's
yeah
not the one have. But then again, it's his first year there. Second year, he went 5-7, and then last year 10-3. It's like completely flipped the script. And I don't think Florida State's where they potentially want to be recruiting wise, ACC wise, and like in the country. Because I mean, as of right now, they're not as stand out as they used to be recruiting. But I think that with Mike, what Mike Norvell is building there, they are trending up. And
yes
I think
you
for
know
fans in Tallahassee, they're excited about where they're trending.
yeah and last year they finished like six like in the top 20 in recruiting. This year, as of right now, they're in the top 10 and sitting at number 9. And they got some good recruits. Florida State's one of those blue blood, always gonna be relevant type of programs.
Oh yeah,
They have it, and but looking at their schedule, I think they lose to LSU in Orlando. I think LSU is the better team this go around. I think LSU was better team last year, but LSU, I do think. I mean, LSU's my pick to win the national championship right now. Um,
it's gonna be a good game.
It's
Week
gonna
one,
be a great game. It's gonna be a playoff game, week 1,
yeah,
and I think LSU beats them opening weekend, but I think these two teams will probably see each other again in the playoffs. I do think they go to Clemson, they go to Florida State. I mean, not Florida State.
being at Clemson. I think other than the LSU game, being at Clemson is definitely their most difficult game because as
Yeah,
of right now, like we talked about last week, we don't even know what to expect from Clemson this upcoming year. Like
yeah.
both of
And
these,
I think they beat Clemson on the road. I think it's an early game in types of where in the year it is. It's still a September game. Um, I think Clemson, still has a little bit to figure out on offense, or will have a little bit to figure out on offense and defense. I think they win that. I think they win that game at home, and I think they win the ACC. They go to Florida and they play at Florida, but I mean we don't really know what Florida is going to be. They host
yeah.
the Hurricanes. They go to Wake Forest, which I think could maybe be a trap game, but I don't know what they really have coming back. But
And I
Florida
think,
State,
yeah, no, Florida State's gonna and like I think one of the more difficult things too is they did lose a lot in the portal. They lost a lot
yeah,
of guys. Micah Pittman to Utah, he left, was one of their better receivers. They lost Bishop Thomas to Colorado. They actually lost, I'm pretty sure, like 6 or 7 guys from Florida State left for Colorado to go join
yeah,
Dion. Just wild to me that all the like a lot of Florida State guys transferred to Colorado, which is
hmm
crazy. But I mean, like that's what they ended up doing. But I think on the bright side, they have Jordan Travis coming back. They have Trey Benson. They have Jared Verse, who's like a standout, phenomenal defensive end. And they have these guys returning for Mike Norvell, which is going to help them win the ACC. I think most people right now are betting on Florida State to win the ACC. They are the favorites. Everyone
yeah.
right now, after the year they had last year, I think that it's pretty clear that they do have a shot, especially after they won their bowl game. But yeah, it'll be an interesting year for sure. Like, I mean, last year they finished 11th in the AP poll, 10th in the coaches poll. And it's going to be an interesting year to see if last year was just a crazy good year for Mike Norvell or if he can come back and Jordan Travis can come back and just sling it
Yeah.
and take down these
And that's
East.
the big thing too. They have Jordan Travis, who's been there for a few years now. He's got all the experience, and man, he can do a lot. Like he can do a lot of things. He can run. He's a good runner. He plays really hard. Last year I got his stats pulled up. Last year he had you know over 3,000 yards passing, and he threw for 24 touchdowns and only 5 picks. So, I mean, I think he does get hurt a little bit. I think the biggest thing for them on offense coming back is their receiver Johnny Wilson, number 14. Man, he is going to be one of the top receivers this coming season. He had almost 1,000, almost 900 yards receiving. Um, you know, I remember watching this kid a few games last year, and he was just balling.
And I mean,
they did have Micah Pitt. They did have Micah Pittman,
which they lost, which kind of hurts. But I mean, they do have the running back Trey Benson coming back, and
yeah,
I think what most people don't realize is he had it like last year. Jordan Travis was top 10 in his QB rating and his QBR. And you look at his stats, and as of right now, I think on almost all platforms, he has the number 2 best odds to win the Heisman next year. Most people don't realize that he's right behind Caleb Williams and just about every race for Heisman odds next year. And I mean, like for him, like that's the chip on his shoulder that he just needs to go after. And like he could very well potentially have a Heisman type year. It just really depends on how it works out for them. I know that Florida State got a ton of guys in the portal, like guys like Braden Fisk, a defensive lineman from Western Michigan, who's supposed to be really good. I mean, who knows? They did get a couple 4-stars in the transfer portal, 4-star transfer. And I mean, that's a huge other thing that they really do need, because nowadays it's not that you need to build through the portal, but acquiring guys like that is huge. I also read something else too on Sports Illustrated that this upcoming year, Florida State has the highest production returning out of their team from last year, based on skill wise, not just players returning, but based on players' skill and who's returning out of those skilled players. And I think that if I'm not wrong, Sports Illustrated said 87% of Florida State's highest production is returning in 2023, which leads the country. So,
and you've seen it, with these teams that have a lot of talent coming back, they tend to do well, the next year. And a guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing again is Jared Verse, who was a sophomore last year, going into his junior year. He had 9 sacks, almost 47 tackles. Dude's a menace on the D line, and a lot of people think he's going to be one of the top guys, one of the top defensive guys in next year's draft. And man, I like what this guy can bring. I like what he can bring on the defensive line. And Florida State, just like Clemson, they have a history of having guys up front that can play and that can do things. On the defensive front, a couple of years ago they had Jermaine Johnson, who got drafted by the Jets in 2022, and this year they got this last couple of guys. They got Jared Verse, but man, I really like their roster. I really like what they bring, and I like what Mike Norvell is doing. I think they can really win the ACC. And I think I don't think they play in the national championship. I see them coming out of the ACC, but I don't see them playing in the national championship.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely don't see him playing in the national championship either. But going back to what you were saying about Jared Verse, literally, like I think it's another underestimated thing too. Like Florida State could have a top defense in the country next year, based on the returners and the production that they have and the guys they got in the portal. They could definitely have one of the top defenses in the country. I wouldn't put it past them at all, especially because they play in the ACC. And I mean, not that their schedule is easy. I think they have a pretty tough schedule, looking at LSU and Clemson, and who knows what Florida's going to do, like you were saying. But like they definitely phenomenal year, and having the guys like Jared Verse and Jordan Travis on both sides of the ball, and then Trey Benson, their running back, who's returning for his sophomore season. He almost rushed for 1,000 yards last year, and he has a lot of production to just carry them to where they need to be.
Yeah, and I also like their DBs. I mean, they got a bunch of guys like Florida State is also one of those DB centric type schools. Jalen Ramsey, Asante Samuel, some other guys, and they're known for having running backs. So, I mean, I really like what Florida State has coming back. I like their chances. They're a lot more experienced than what Clemson might have coming back.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I really like this Florida State team. That's kind of all I have to say about them, because there's not much to say, because I really think they're going to come out of the. I don't know, I'm kind of repeating myself, but I think they come out of the ACC. I think they win that one at Clemson. They'll probably end up facing Clemson again in the ACC title game, but that's just so far off from now. I still think even if they lose that one at Clemson, if they can just win one or the other against Clemson or LSU, and they win out, I think they're in the playoffs.
Oh, 100%. And my last point that I have with Florida State is I think one good thing about Mike Norvell being there and how Florida State is trending right now is that they are keeping Florida players in Florida.
Yeah,
Florida.
definitely.
Florida's one of the best high school football states in the country. You think about it, when you think about the best high school football in the country, it's always usually Texas, California, Florida, maybe Alabama, maybe Ohio, maybe a couple other states thrown in there. But you look at Florida, Florida always has the top talent each and every single year. And you always see those top Florida 5 stars, 4 stars. They're usually all going out of state. They're usually all going to SEC, like SEC schools or Big Ten, but most of them aren't staying in Florida anymore because Florida State, Miami, and Florida aren't cutting it for them.
Yeah.
And I think right now, looking at their recruiting class, they're keeping guys from Florida in Florida.
Definitely. And, that's
getting,
a big thing because that's the same thing, LSU, Brian Kelly and LSU, like Brian Kelly being at LSU have been able to do is, Louisiana's a really, good, a really, high school rich state, and they're keeping a lot of, and they're like, I think the NIL landscape has been able to help these schools keep and having good coaches like Mike Norvell and like Brian Kelly keep those guys that are they're strong.
Yeah, keep the in-state talent in state.
Exactly, and because Alabama's been poaching Louisiana talent from LSU for years. Devontae Smith was one of them. Devontae Smith from Louisiana, and you saw what he did. And and same thing with Patrick Surtain, and a lot of other guys. So and the same thing with Florida. I mean, Bama and Georgia, and I would say Florida has been able to keep some of those guys in the last several years, but Florida State, ever since Florida State lost to Bama in that 2016 or 2017 season, I mean, you might remember it. They opened Bama and Florida State opened the season in Atlanta, and DeAndre Francois, their quarterback at the time, got hurt during the game, but Bama was already about to put it away anyway. But ever since they lost that game to Bama, they really kind of were on a downward slide, and there was a lot of questions about, they hired Willie Taggart at the time, and that's when they had Jimbo Fisher, and Jimbo Fisher went over to A&M, and that season after, and so it all depends. But now that Mike Norvell has seemed to kind of turn it around, you see it now, like, especially after their season last year, the recruiting is getting better. The keeping the in-state talent is getting better.
Now they're snagging kids from other states too. Like their top 3 recruits in this upcoming 2024 class, as of right now, are all from Georgia. Actually, they have a lot of Florida guys, but their top 3 recruits are all from Georgia, and those are guys that they're stealing from Georgia and Alabama and other top SEC schools, which is huge for Florida State. Like
definitely, and one guy that they got last year in the 2023 recruiting class, I think they got like one of the top receivers last year. Hakeem Williams. I think he's a guy that can make an instant impact for them. He was right behind Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, and Zachariah Branch. He was the 4th overall receiver, 5-star. And then they also got some offensive linemen last year. They got a bunch of guys, and so I think and they got a quarterback. They also got a quarterback commit last year. So yeah, their recruiting class is looking up, and last year they finished 19th. Well, as of right now, this year they're up 10 spots at 9, and they had the 6th overall transfer class. They got a lot. They've also got some guys from the portal, but they also gained a lot.
Exactly, which is huge for them. And I mean, as of right now, I think if you're a Florida State fan, it's looking good. And I think as of right now, you're happy with what Mike Norvell is doing, and probably going to win the ACC. So something to look forward to.
They are winning the ACC. That's my prediction. Is Florida State's winning the ACC, they will make it to the playoff.
As of right now, I'm still kind of scared with that. I mean, I'm not scared, but I think Dabo could really pull it off again this year and make a run. But we'll see what happens.
I would like to see Clemson prove me wrong, but right now I'm sticking with Florida State.
Yeah, well, that's all I have to say about Florida State, but we'll see what they can do. I want to know what your prediction is on their record this year.
Yeah, don't want me?
Yeah, like just the overall record. How many?
I think they lose to LSU to begin the season. I think that's their only loss. They went out, they go to Clemson, they beat Clemson. They beat Boston College, Virginia Tech. They beat Florida because nobody really knows about Florida this year right now. Syracuse could be a tough one for them, but they got him at home. Duke, they're gonna beat Duke. I think Wake Forest could be a trap game. At Pitt could be a trap game, but I think they win those. I think they're gonna beat Miami, and they're gonna beat Florida. I think it all hinges on that ACC championship game.
I think
Especially if they beat Clemson the first time. It's hard to beat a team twice. But I am for right now going to say they beat Clemson twice, and
yeah, I agree with you. They're probably going to end up going 13-1, but that's my prediction. But yeah. I think lose either. Depending on who they play in their bowl game or college football playoff, whatever it is, I think they're going to lose. But we'll see. Rude awakening.
And I'm not saying Florida State's got an easy shot to win the ACC. As I said last week, them and Clemson are neck and neck. I mean, it's going to be whoever wins. I think whoever wins that game September 23rd is who I think ends up winning the ACC.
Oh,
and right now I got Florida State, but I mean, it very well could be Clemson. So if there's any Clemson fans out there who get mad that I say Florida State can win the ACC, I think y'all could win it too. I mean, it's a toss up between you two. I mean, the two of y'all right now. So
yeah, we'll see what happens, but it's fun breaking down Florida State. Now let's get into segment 2, baby. Yo. Segment 2 is brought to you by 251 Pool Works. Family owned and operated. 251 Pool Works offers pool cleaning, maintenance, and repair. And they have always served the greater Mobile, Baldwin County, and Pensacola areas. And if you're needing any monthly pool cleaning service or just any pool cleaning service at all and or repair, give them a call at 251-978-7736 for the Pool Works. Heck yeah. We thank you to 251 Pool Works for sponsoring segment 2. And for segment 2, we're going to dive into something that Bryant really wants to talk about.
I wouldn't say really want to, but it's something that has blown up in the college football world and maybe just the football world in general. The Baby Gronk situation is a situation where this 10-year-old kid named Madden San Miguel has been blowing up. He's from the Dallas area. He's been blowing up. He goes by the name Baby Gronk, and his father runs a social media account, and he goes to all these schools and does visits with them. Gets to put on gear and stuff like that, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, as a 10-year-old kid, I would have dream of going to all these schools and putting on their gear and getting to meet some of the players and stuff like that. But now recently he's kind of blown up because he got to meet some other celebrity icons like the famous LSU gymnast Olivia Doon, Shaquille O'Neal, Mark Wahlberg, and he has over 320,000 followers on Instagram, man. As a 10-year-old kid. But what's been blowing up about this is apparently he's been messaging a lot of these bigger college football icons and and people who run the bigger college football shows and asking for collabs and stuff like that. And his father, Jake Miguel, is the one who really kind of pushes this into motion. And how do I say this? He basically has been programming his son for this at 6 years old. He said they've been training and doing all this kind of dietary stuff for eating. And I get it. You want to get if you want your son to be a professional athlete, go for it. Let him, but still let him be a kid. I don't know. I feel and a lot of other people feel this way, is that the father is living through his son.
Yeah, and I read something too that the father is making $100,000, over $100,000 a year off of his kid. And the father claims that that's all going into savings to benefit Baby Gronk's future. But at the same time, it's like you were saying, it really seems like the dad is just living through his son and really controlling and limiting his childhood. As a kid, yes, I guess it's a good thing for him to get this kind of exposure and kind of blow up like this, but at the same time, man, let the kid be a kid. I feel there's to me, it's just too much. Like, I think that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that
Yeah.
it's gotten to be too much. And recently, too, like, Baby Gronk was on some sort of podcast, and the dad was literally trying to speak through his son. He kept like telling his son what to say, to sort of like whispering in his ear, and it seemed scripted. Like, it was like, and
Yeah.
some of the answers that Baby Gronk was saying almost seemed like his dad prepared him for those types of questions.
Yeah, and
And
like, and I want this. I would love to see this kid succeed. I would love to see like, I would love to see the kid, have a great future, play it, wherever he wants to play at, and go to the NFL and be the next, Rob Gronkowski or Baby Gronk. I would love to see him succeed, but like, also, we don't really know a lot about this kid. He could turn out to be a bust, and it would be one of like the biggest like, you know, failures. Because I mean, this kid started off so young, but I want to see the kid succeed. I would love to see him, become this sensational athlete. But I don't know. It's a
he could, but at the same time, it's like to me, I feel like it's more unlikely. To me, I think it's a whole publicity stunt, and there's way less work on the field going on. And I
And the
think it's
best way I can describe this as is like, when you go to the little league park and you see all these parents who think their kids the next, Babe Ruth or the next, Aaron Judge, and they yell at their kids, and they try and like, and they don't honor their kids for making a mistake. This is like, I have no idea what he's like, what the father is like when he's out, like when they're out on the field and training and playing and stuff. I have no idea. I could be totally wrong, but like, it's like one of those situations where it's like one of those situations where the parent expects their kid to be the greatest athlete ever, like dial to 10, like
I think one of the issues with this too is the fact that Baby Gronk already has so much publicity, has met all these different athletes, done all these different collabs, has gone all these different visits. Like, what's that going to do to the kid's ego? The kid's 10 years old.
exactly.
He might think that he might be the most cockiest. Like, I'm not saying this will happen, but it surely could happen where he ends up being one of the most cockiest, arrogant players, where he thinks he's the best. And he might not ever get anywhere. He'll still probably end up playing football somewhere, but he might not ever end up at a Power 5 or D1 school, because of the fact that he'll think he's already a step above everybody else, and won't put in the work into everything, because of the fact that he already has this platform and is just gonna expect things to be handed to him, because it's kind of happening.
And he's only like you said, he's only 10 years old. He got another 6-7 years before he even,
until he goes to even like any Power 5 camps, like,
and before he like starts, some now granted, some kids do start receiving offers a little bit earlier than they should. Like, so there have been times where Bama has sent an offer to an 8th grader, or something like that, or a 9th grader, or other schools have done the same thing. But like
JJ McCarthy had offers as a freshman in high school before he even started his first snap freshman year.
Yeah.
Which, I understand, but like, the kid's 10. Like there's got to be a
and
lot.
like I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen this kid in person. I probably never will. I mean, like I said, I hope he succeeds. I hope this is all worth it for him and his father. But man, I don't know. I'm a little bit torn on this situation, because while I do get entertained seeing this stuff, and seeing him, collab with some of the different, celebrities like Olivia Dune, and some of the different, going on these visits and acting like he's committing somewhere, stuff like that. I still think, let him live his life as a kid, and let him, and one thing about like childhood in general is, in like childhood, you need to learn like to make your mistakes and stuff like that. You need to learn, you know, how to be humble and stuff like that. Now, I'm not saying, like they're not preaching, like his father might not be teaching him how to be humble, but man, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, and once his childhood's gone, it's gone. There's no going back. Like,
yeah. And
but for me, it's just it's a fishy situation. And
like I said, I hope he succeeds. I hope he becomes one of the greatest athletes ever. I hope he does succeed. I hope he does, get to the highest level of football. I mean, we might, 10 years down the road and he's in the NFL playing for Denver or something. You never know. But
who knows? But yeah, it's interesting to see. But that leads me into the next topic, going into The Big Ten last week. I know this is a little late of news, but for those that haven't found out yet, or for those just listening, the Big Ten was the last Power Five. The Big Ten was the last Power Five division, the last FBS division, not FBS, but the last Power Five division to finally eliminate conference divisions. So there's no longer going to be an East and a West in the Big Ten. They followed doing this shortly after the SEC already did this. And I think, to me, one of the most interesting scenarios of the Big Ten doing this is they got rid of some rivalries by doing this. They're not guaranteeing Penn State to play both Michigan and Ohio State every single year. And there's only 11 guaranteed rivalries. And the funny thing is, Penn State's not even guaranteed to play any teams every year. They don't have any rivalries. So Penn State every year is going to be playing different schools. And for me as a fan, like, I'm just like, I feel like that sucks as a Penn State fan, because Penn State fans have, I mean, maybe not, but like the rivalry they've built up between Michigan and Ohio State over the years has been so fun to watch.
State.
Yeah. And Michigan, like, and it's like, I think it just sucks. I think it sucks that they kind of gypped Penn State in a way out of not giving them one of those big games that they would have every year.
I'll tell you who they gypped. They gypped UCLA. Have you seen UCLA's away schedule for next year?
Yeah,
they gotta travel the most miles. Like, it's like over like 23,000 miles. They gotta travel.
I think it was 26,000 miles they're gonna have to travel.
It's ridiculous. They go to LSU, they go to Iowa, they go to Rutgers.
They go to Hawaii.
They go to Hawaii too.
And it's like, you think about them going all the way out east from where they're at. They're gonna have to go even more west to Hawaii, which is just
exactly.
And I'm like, think about the jet lag with that. Like, every single week, it's that'll be interesting, because you think about it. They said it, out of all major sports divisions, no team out of the NHL, MLB, NBA, or NFL even travels that much in 1 year.
And so, I think USC and UCLA, granted they have some great recruiting classes and they're great teams. I think they struggle a little bit in their first couple of years, and maybe not their first couple of years, maybe not. Maybe UCLA more than USC, because USC does have Lincoln Riley, and But I do think they struggle their first year in the Big Ten, not because of the having to travel so far.
The adjustment, yeah. Think about it.
The adjustment to the traveling.
Think about the fact, like, even just us, like, I know we're not athletes anymore, but like, just hopping on a plane ride to go on vacation is like so draining. That plane ride is the most draining thing. And think about playing in a huge college football game the day after that. Yeah. Like, that's something that's going to be like,
working for South Alabama's football team, like I do, we got to go out to UCLA last year, and I got the privilege of going. Like, I was thankful to accompany them to that game, and that was just like a 3-year. I mean, we didn't have a layover or anything. It was like a 4-hour flight out there, and man, the first thing we did was go visit the beach and whatnot when we got there. But man, I was still tired, after the flight, and then it was like a 3-hour flight coming back after we played the game, and like we didn't get back to and it's a time adjustment too, because I remember, and I'm not even a player like this. I'm just a video guy. I can only imagine how the players felt. It's a time adjustment too, because I can remember being in the hotel in Los Angeles. I'm waking up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, Los Angeles time, thinking it's because it's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, Alabama time. So it's also a time adjustment too, where you got to get used to playing at those time frames as well.
I think that USC and UCLA are going to have to hire some sort of specialist or something and do some sort of like physical and mental training to like somehow, there's got to be something out there to like adjust your body in a way where you're like prepared for whatever kind of toll you're going to take from.
And the other thing is, and you might want to say this quietly to USC fans, but the Big Ten plays defense. I will say this now. This is I don't know if this is a bold take or not, but this is a prediction from me. I think USC and UCLA struggle more beginning in their new conference than Texas and Oklahoma do in the SEC.
Oh, I would 100% agree with that. And it's like, it's not that Texas and Oklahoma are like obviously Texas and Oklahoma are going to the SEC, which obviously plays defense too. But I think the Big 12 plays a little bit more defense than the Pac 12 is used to. And I mean, especially looking at USC doesn't play defense.
Lincoln Riley teams don't play defense. That's
exactly. But as of right now, yeah, USC doesn't play defense. You look at what happened last year in the Pac-12 championship against Utah.
And if it was Lincoln Riley OU coming into the SEC, I probably wouldn't have said that. Even though I still think OU would fare pretty well just for having Lincoln Riley in the SEC. But he dodged the SEC in my opinion. But that's another discussion for another day.
Exactly.
But no, I think USC and UCLA struggle in their first year. Now I think USC is probably a little bit better equipped because of having Lincoln Riley and because of having the talent that they do. Now UCLA is coming along. They had a great year last year, so you never know. I do think that the traveling and getting used to the playing in those time zones a lot can really take a toll on your body.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I think that's all I have to say about the Big Ten and the way they're getting rid of divisions. I think it's better for the Big Ten doing that for future reference. Number one and number two team play in the Big Ten championship. That's best for everybody. Could see Michigan, Ohio State back to back happen, and could see it back to back to back. Could see it happen. Final game.
I still think the Big Ten is going to try to go out and get like Washington and Oregon or somebody to help maybe UCLA and balance the traveling just a little bit. That way they can play those teams as well and not having to. I don't know. I still think that conversation is out there somewhere. We might not be hearing about it. But it was definitely prevalent last year after UCLA and UCLA and USC announced their exit to the Big Ten. So,
yeah. And I think that kind of closes it out with what we're going to talk about college football wise.
But now going to
the NFL, we're going to talk about the NFC South and kind of share our predictions for who's going to win the NFC South, who's going to come out on the bottom, because the NFC South is one of the most questionable divisions in the whole NFL.
Yeah, and it might even be now in the AFC South is the same way, because other than the Jaguars, there's really no, you don't know what other teams are going to be. And the same thing can be said about the NFC South is, honestly, you don't know what to expect from any of these teams on the NFC.
It's a coin flip. Like the New Orleans Saints, they have Derek Carr coming in, passing through.
Well, I think very highly of Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is a great quarterback.
It's just you don't know what's going to happen with their team next year. There's really, and then the Atlanta Falcons, like the Saints could be really good with Derek Carr. They could also be really bad. You look at the Falcons. The Falcons have a really young team. They could be really, really good. Same could go to the Panthers. The Buccaneers on the other end. I think the Buccaneers are coming out at the very bottom of that division, but you never know. Yeah. Like they still.
I can agree with you on that. I think the Buccaneers finish last. But I think it's a three-way race to the top between the Panthers, the Saints, and the Falcons. I think either of those teams can win that division. To me, for the Falcons, it all depends on what Desmond Ridder does. And the same thing with the Panthers. I think it all depends on, because the Panthers announced last week that they're moving Bryce Young up on the depth chart to quarterback one, which I believe we all knew was going to happen anyway. But I mean, and now granted, Bryce Young will be given a little bit more leeway in his first year than Desmond Ridder will be in his second year, because Bryce Young doesn't have the same amount of weapons as now. Bryce Young has some nice weapons with the Panthers, but they're not Drake London, they're not Bijan Robinson, they're not Kyle Pitts.
Exactly.
And now the Panthers, I think, have the best defense, and I think the Panthers and Saints have the best. Now the Falcons have a great defense too, but I think the Panthers have a great defense. I love their defensive line with Brian Burns and Shaq Thompson and a couple other guys. Derek Brown. I like their line. I like their DBs with J.C. Horn and Dante Jackson. I really like the Panthers defense, but I think I'm gonna stick with the Saints coming out on top just because they have the more experience.
I know, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, I definitely agree. I think the Saints are coming out on top, but one thing to me is just with how questionable this conference is. I don't think any of these teams, whoever comes out on top, I don't think any of them win more than 9 games. I don't even know if any of them will win 9 games.
I could see the Saints going to like 11-6, 10-7, maybe even a 12-5, depending on their schedule.
Maybe, but it's just to me, it's just such a coin flip where I'm like, this division is so. It really is a coin flip. Like anything is, I mean, anything's
I
possible.
think the Saints could go 6-0 in their own division. That's 6 wins right there, depending on.
It is, but at the same time, I mean, outside of the division, they're still going to have some other tough games. But I mean, yeah, I have no idea. But
To me, I think it goes. I think it goes Saints, Panthers, Falcons. I think all three of those teams are kind of like neck and neck. Then at the bottom of the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield can say, they're confident right now in everything. I think that team is about to tank. They know what's ahead of them with either Drake May or Caleb Williams at the helm, be the successor of Tom Brady. I don't think Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask, or should I say Kyle Trash, is the answer for them at quarterback. We've seen. I don't know if you've seen the practice clips of them back a couple
yes,
weeks
awful.
at OTAs of
Yeah,
them throwing absolute ducks. But
yeah.
no, I think the Buccaneers come in last, and I think it's a three-way race between the Falcons and Saints and the Panthers. And I think it's Saints, Panthers, Falcons, and Buccaneers. I think that's kind of where I'm at right now with the NFC South.
I think I agree with you 110%. And I mean, it'll be interesting because I really, I mean, the Panthers could be really good though too. That's the thing. Like, I don't think they will beat out the Saints, but at the same time, like they really could. You never know, and especially with how young they are in Bryce and
I think Bryce, has been put in the best situation out of any of these rookie quarterbacks. Houston still got a little bit of work to do on offense. With CJ, they got to get him a couple more weapons. Damian Pierce is a running back I like. But Bryce, they have Miles Sanders, who's established. They have Adam Thielen, who's a really good receiver. They got Jonathan Mingo from the draft, who I think is going to be a really good player. They got some other guys. I think on offense, they got Terrace Marshall from LSU a couple years back.
They have DJ Chark still. Like
DJ Chark, who when healthy is pretty good. So I
like,
think, and I like their offensive line too. I think they have some work to do on one of the sides. I can't remember, but they drafted Ikem Ekwonu in last year's draft in the first round in the top 10. He was like the top tackle taken in last year's draft, and he did pretty well for them last year. So I think they got some work to do up front. But Bryce is one of those guys that can do things when things break down, and we've seen him do it time and time again at Alabama, which is kind of all you need to know, because you don't see quarterbacks having to do it like that at Alabama.
Yeah, 100%.
And so the fact that he had to at Alabama and he did, I think he's in the best situation right now. Now, and I think his health is also, he's there's a lot of questions about his size. I think if he stays healthy. But I mean, like I said, the NFC South is that's why we're starting with them first, because they're like the hardest one to predict.
I want to know what you guys think in the comments below right now. Who you think is coming out on top of the NFC South? Please do not say Buccaneers. If you do, just get out already.
I will personally be rooting for the Panthers because of Bryce, because of being a Bama fan. I would love to see Bryce come out on top, but I think
the Panthers could come out on top. I think the Panthers could come out on top, but I'm completely rooting against the Panthers because the Bears have their pick next year. So we'll see what happens with that. But I don't think the Panthers are going to be that bad at all. Like
I said, it's the Saints just because of the experience they have coming back. I think the only thing questionable to me about the Saints is what they're going to do at running back if Alvin Kamara is not available because of his legal situations right now with that assault he had back at the Pro Bowl. Not this past season, but in 2022. So it all depends on
how that.
It all depends on the quarterbacks in this division, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I 100%.
And Derek Carr is the best quarterback in this division right now.
As of right now, yes, he's the only one that's really proven much of anything. Yeah, so that's all I got to say about the NFC South. And I mean, this episode has been a blast.
Definitely.
I mean, it'll be interesting too to see how Florida State pans out ACC wise. I think that they have the advantage right now. We both went over that already, but
yeah. And then Baby Gronk, if his career pans out in the not so near future, it's gonna be a while before we really learn anything about this kid and how good he really is. And then the Big Ten, man, that's gonna be the SEC and Big Ten kind of have fresh start next year as far as their conferences go, and so both of them having teams come in, having to redo their schedules, get rid of divisions. You know, it's going to be interesting to see. But man, I'm just ready for the season to start this year, man. I'm ready.
We're both talking about 2024. At this point, I'm ready for football to be back. The NBA is officially over now too. We have MLB for the summer. NHL is almost just about over. Vegas might win it tonight, but man, we need football back. I'm waiting for it.
And man,
yeah.
I want to thank all of you guys for tuning in to last week's episode. That was amazing, just seeing it go up as on viewership as much as it has. Remember to hit the subscriber button. Thank you to our two sponsors, 251 Pool Works and Now Fitness. Couldn't do it without y'all. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification. We're going to start posting reels on YouTube Shorts. We're going to start doing that. Follow our social media pages. They'll be in the link description below. That's all I got.
Oh, yeah. Let's get it, baby. Episode 14, we out.